Before I begin today, I just want to take a moment to recognize all of you lovely people and your ability to come out here and show such an amazing amount of support for Pink Day. I just think it's awesome I just want to thank Mikhail for, where is he? Mikhail for organizing this day, and of course Jolene for carrying on the tradition, and everyone else involved in making this day happen. So in recognizing breast cancer, let's just do a quick round of applause for that. Good morning, honorary guests, esteemed faculty, friends, colleagues, and hey, Mom. First off, I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic day that I can add to with these thoughts. My name is Pete MacDonald, a.k.a. Petey Mac, P. Swizzle, and Pedro to all my friends down south. And for those of you who have managed to miss all 372 announcements regarding the prefects this year, I'm honored to have been chosen to represent all of you lovely, lovely people. As most of you probably know, each chapel speech revolves around a specific theme. Looking at me, you all undoubtedly assume my theme today is perfection. Au contraire, mes amis. Quite the opposite. You see, I'm the youngest of my brothers, numero quattro to be exact. That means that I'm well acquainted with one feeling in particular. Can I get a quick drum roll? Vulnerability. Anyone who has ever been second, third, or fourth has experienced vulnerability. The word conjures weakness, frailty, sympathy. It sounds like something that we should avoid. But by the end of my speech, I hope to have reversed that perception. As the fourth sibling, I'd like to share with you how vulnerability, this synonym for weakness, has helped me to become stronger. Now back to the Mac Bros. And no, I'm not talking about MacDonald's most recent addition to the value menu. I'm talking about my brothers and how they helped me discover my vulnerabilities. Let's start at the top, shall we? Connor Francis MacDonald, the eldest. I mean, come on, with a name like Francis, you already knew he was going to be smart. You see, Con is amazing or very annoying, depending on your perspective, because it doesn't matter if you were putting together a beautiful table from IKEA or discussing the laws of relativity. Con always has something clever to add. Now on to Chris, the second of the four. Although quite smart, he made me add that. He too had to find his own way. What Chris found was humor. A story that comes to mind occurred a couple years back in Cabo, in a Mexican restaurant, when a local mariachi band overheard Chris say he played the guitar. On the spot, Chris composed a beautiful melody that we came to know and love as Hola Sombrero, or roughly translated into Hello Hat. It doesn't matter where you are or when it is, he'll always find a way to put a smile on your face. Unless, of course, he's talking about you. That can be rather painful. Oh yes, almost forgot, Johnny. As my parents always remind me, we can't just forget about John. John's the sport guy. He's beaten pros in golf, skimboarded on the Pacific, and can perform a triple Salchow kickflip better than Tony Hawk himself. As you can tell, Johnny Boy is a heck of an athlete. Finally, we've come to the last of us. And as my brothers often remind me, I am last. Baby Pete, as my mom would point out. Forever the youngest, yes, but this is not the end of my apparent shortcomings. Whether it was submitting to the seniority rule that seems to apply to everything, or, being the recipient of all those vintage hand-me-downs, or even being the shortest for all those years, having three older brothers allowed me to see my own limitations and vulnerabilities. I can confidently say I will never understand chess like Con, recite Hola Sombrero like Chris, or kickflip like John. You see, we all have our individual talents, but it's how we react to each other's success that's up to us. If we appreciate and are inspired by each other, we can view their talents as motivation to help us improve. In doing so, we are opening the first door on our way to accomplishing our goals. This is a perspective we can all attain. You don't need brothers to understand that another's success can be the driving force in working on a vulnerability. If we see our vulnerabilities for what they are and we focus on improving them, we can discover how to become the best version of ourselves. We all have our own struggles in trying to overcome these vulnerabilities. But as we approach the Thanksgiving weekend, we must also remember the many things to be grateful for. Our loved ones, each other, the Appleby community. Hey, shout out to Adam Gamel, whoever that guy is. And of course, the opportunity that Appleby gives us to grow. Both Appleby and my family have taught me many valuable lessons. But one of the biggest I've learned is that my greatest chances for growth are those which have exposed my vulnerabilities. One of these so-called chances for growth arose in 2014 while here at Appleby as a grade 9 student. Although it was a new environment with new people and uncertainties, as the youngest of 4 brothers who have all attended Appleby, I had the impression that I already knew what to expect. Because school was school, friends were friends, and golf was golf. As it turns out, I could not have been more wrong in attempting to appreciate how diverse our paths would be. You see, the cool thing about this place is that it helps us find out who we are in our own way. As we discover our strengths and vulnerabilities, we can decide what paths to take once we know them. In third term of my grade 9 year, I had a eureka moment. I understood for the first time how being terrible at something made me better. I was faced with a presumably obvious decision of choosing a co-curricular. My choice? Golf, rugby. My family and I are incredibly into the game of golf. This sport, and yes, no, it is a sport. Pete, that's a speech for another time. Anyways, it occupied the majority of my childhood. Some kids went to Disney, I went to the Masters. Some kids saw Christmas as a time for gifts. How ridiculous. My family and I saw Christmas as a time for golf. My point is, the choice was overwhelmingly obvious. However, there was only one problem in doing what I was comfortable with. It didn't challenge me. I knew I could join the golf team, just like my brothers all did, and enjoy every second of it. But the remarkable thing about Appleby is that each decision you make is your own. There's no expectations or external pressures. There's just the opportunity for you to choose what's best for you. I chose rugby. So there I was, day 1, not knowing a single thing about the game or how to make an impression on Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Fleming, who were the coaches at the time. Actually, no, allow me to rephrase. I definitely made an impression, it just was not a good one. I showed all the weakness I could muster, not because I wanted to, I just sucked at the game. I mean, my first thought was, why would you throw the ball backwards if you wanted to go forwards? It's just counterproductive. But anyways, the moral of the story was that I was vulnerable. I mean, every time I wanted to quit, I looked around at many of you who are here today, my teammates. You guys motivated me. So I showed up the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Before I knew it, I was not only on the team, but I was on a new adventure. Slowly getting better, learning from my mistakes, and dedicating myself to turning a weakness into a strength. Now I'm entering my 4th year of AC Rugby, and I'm proud to announce that Mr. Moores now considers me just as big of a meathead as the rest of them. It's a compliment I've learned, or maybe that's what makes me a meathead. Anyways, what I realized in retrospect is that I didn't keep coming back practice after practice, year after year, because I was good at it, or even because I loved it. I kept coming back because of one crucial thing I realized. If I worked hard enough, I would get better, no matter my starting point. Look at that. Being vulnerable had paid off, guys. These challenges never stop. We know we can keep growing if we want to. Think of this year. What's the most important thing you can get out of it? Is it learning to love your respective grade band prefect? Quite possibly, yes. But I challenge you to also think of one thing you wish to be better at. And promise yourself, I will work at this to be the best I can. Now look at the person beside you. Think of how amazing they are, how they are better than you at something. Admire them for it. We all have people around us who surpass us in different ways. We should learn from them because it's not about being the smartest or the most athletic, or knowing when to crack a joke or volunteer perspective. You just have to realize it. All these people help encourage us to see ourselves more clearly and to see our weaknesses as areas to improve, not hide from. Specifically, Con, Chris, and John weren't pulling me down by excelling. They were simply paving the road for me to discover how to persevere despite certain adversity. I mean, yes, a few less bruises along the way would have been nice, but hey, life's not perfect. Now you might be thinking, Pete, that's all fine and dandy. How is a specific reference to your vulnerabilities turning into strengths relevant to the vulnerabilities I might have? I know you all don't have 3 older siblings, but think about it. Anyone we meet can be a mentor or inspiration, like my brothers have been to me most of the time. Some of the time. Part of the time, my brothers have been an inspiration to me. Whether it's an uncle, a teacher, your local Taekwondo instructor, or even the person sitting next to you, if you seize the opportunity, every person you meet can help you understand your weaknesses in order to transform them into strengths. Vulnerability is a commonly studied aspect of personal growth. Renowned qualitative researcher Brené Brown conducted a study that illustrated the power of vulnerability. Over the course of 6 years, she talked to, put simply, happy and unhappy people. She found that the biggest difference in how the happy people lived their lives compared to the unhappy was their willingness to be vulnerable to one another. They did not describe their weaknesses as comfortable or particularly excruciating, but instead, they called them necessary. Necessary in acknowledging not only the areas in which you can promote your own self-growth, but necessary for what you can learn about yourself from these weaknesses. At the end of the day, it's important to know that just because we all have flaws, it doesn't make us flawed. It simply provides us the best trampoline we can use to learn and become a better version of ourselves. Because life's not about loving the root of your self-doubt or hating it. It's simply about understanding its role in who you are and who you can become. We should stop viewing our vulnerabilities as weaknesses that need to be hidden. Instead, see them for what they can be, the starting point of potentially your greatest strength. Perhaps the Dalai Lama said it best, as he usually does, in pointing out that being aware of a single shortcoming within yourself is far more useful than being aware of 1,000 within someone else. So last but not least, be you. Try something you're bad at. Embrace your strengths and love your flaws, because in doing so you will realize, just like I did, that you can throw the ball backwards and still win the game. Thank you, and join me in singing hymn 565.